Record on this computer. Okay, we should be recording now. So I'm a little late getting the recording going, so it won't all be there. But anyway, so you know, you're obligated to complete your presentation in 15 minutes. When you present professionally, you know, you're going to be given a time slot. You're going to talk to a customer, a project manager or something, and you're not allowed to go over. Okay, so you know, if you go over, people are going to be really unhappy with you because you're taking somebody else's time. Somebody else doesn't get enough time because you went over your time limit. So what we'll do is, you know, if you're presenting in a Zoom meeting and you go over, well, I'm just going to say, stop, you're done. Okay. So doing a trial run makes a whole lot of sense to help you get it timed out and say, you know how to do it. All of this should be fun. It's not all that, and really not all that hard. So, so here's the scoring. You know, your presentation is going to be 1/4 of your results. Okay, and the structure is 1/4. You know, what are the parts and how do they link together? And again, we'll look at my sample for a different problem in a minute. The workflow, you know, your description of the processing and activities. Testing is 15%, prototype is 10%, presentation of extensions is 5%. Okay, so that's the model of your obligations. I want to point out this. This is a page on my website, and I talk about design, and I think you might want to look at it a little bit. Particularly down here at the bottom, I talk about presenting, you know, just a few comments about putting together a presentation. So, you know, did you see that, Mike? Did you see the page for my site? Okay. Yep. So there's a set of events laid out here, and the logistics handout provides a little clearer detail. I'm going to send you Zoom links via email, just like I did this time for the Q&A. There's 2 more Q&A sessions, one a week from today and another one on Thursday just before the Code-a-thon, just for last minute questions. And then if you want to schedule a presentation, Zoom presentation, each team needs to send me an email. Please, I don't want to get 6 emails from one team. Just each team send 1 email saying that you want to get scheduled, and I will reply and acknowledge so that you know I got your email, and I'll reply with your time slot for the presentation. The presentations are going to start on Friday at 1 o'clock, and they're going to go probably, you know, depending on how many teams want to present in Zoom, you know, do a dynamic presentation rather than uploading a MP4. Either one is fine. You don't lose credit no matter which choice you make. The choice is totally up to you. Okay, is everybody caught up? Are there any questions before we take a quick look at a sample document?
Hi, I do have a question about something a bit more general. Do you want me to hold off on that, or do you want me to ask that now?
Let's try fielding it now. Let's see where we go.
Okay, so I'm just kind of curious about how mentors should handle the event where team members, where a majority of team members, when I say majority, I mean like 60% or so of team members are maybe not very active in chat, as in we haven't really heard from them in the Discord server at all. Mm-hmm. Is there anything in particular we should be doing if we're not seeing a lot of participation, or is it just kind of how it is and we do what we can?
Both answers are true, I think. You know, I would send them emails and say, hey, you haven't participated. If you're going to participate, we need your participation. If you don't intend to participate, please let us know and we'll drop you from the team.
Okay. Sounds good.
And then, you know, and then the rest just, the problem is that a few people may come in just at the tail end and slow everything down. And if I were a mentor, I'd be pretty firm about, you know, I would send out an email to the whole team, maybe maybe a week from today, and say, for any of you who have been participating, if you don't start participating right away, we're going to drop you from the team.
Okay, that sounds good.
Good. Okay. Okay, so let's look at a sample design document. So, we're looking at my website, and you can't click on the links unless you click this download. But if you click this download, you'll see the same thing, and now the links are all active. So, so this is a sample of what you're going to generate, not for your problem, but for a totally different problem. I tried to pick one that wasn't anything like yours, except that it was about the same level of complexity, same level of difficulty, okay? So what this sample program does is it converts source files to HTML, to web pages. In other words, you can present this source code as a web page. And there's a lot of reasons for doing that. I do that all the time for my website. I put code up as web. So here's a spec. And again, you'll notice this is kind of telegraphic, and that's what I'm asking you to do. These design documents, I don't intend for them to be long, big, lots of text and stuff. They want to be as short and brief and, but clear as you can possibly make them. So I like this kind of telegraphic style. So, here's a project spec, the description, source to HTML transforms the source code to a web page. And the inputs are, here's the name of the program, and then /p, this is a path to the file, /s, this is a style sheet, /n, true or false, that means line numbers. And again, for any of you guys who haven't done any web programming, don't worry about it. This is just an example. It has nothing to do with your problem. And the program outputs, so when I apply the program to myfile.h and myfile.cpp, I expect to get files myfile.h.html and myfile.cpp.html. So those are web pages now. And here's a description of the design. Again, I did this so that you will see that you have to do the same thing. So you need a design description. So, and a design description is usually, what are the uses and the users, what's the structure, and are there any critical issues? So the uses program will generate outputs for communication between developers. To support developers working on a large project, they need to, they need to see the code that's going to call them and see the code they're going to call. They will from time to time fork them down, or clone them from a repository, but a lot of times they don't want all that. All they want is a quick view, and that this web page gives a really nice, very quick, one click, and you're looking at the code. Okay, you don't have to clone stuff and walk into the directory and blah 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 blah. So. Also support for design review meetings. Again, people may have cloned your code before the meeting, but in the meeting, this just lets you quickly pull up the code and talk about it. And then instructors would use a design and implementation, use web pages for their design and implementation courses. I did that when I taught at SU all the time. Okay. So, and I'm a little bit of talk here. You can look at it. I'm not going to go over every word, so you can look at it more. These are just links in the Discord server. You can grab them. So here's the tasks. So you will come up with tasks for your text finder. Here's the tasks for this source code converter. Accept the arguments for the command line. Transcribe each source file, replacing markup characters with escape sequences. So less than, if I have that in my code, and I will all over, every generic will have a angle bracket or 2 or 3 or 4, and that'll confuse the heck out of a browser parser. So we have to replace them by an escape sequence. Ampersand less than is an escape sequence that represents this angle bracket. So visually, it just looks, it displays like an angle bracket, but to what the browser parser sees is ampersand, less than, semicolon, and the browser recognizes that this is an escape sequence. And prepend pre-tags and postpend a slash pre-tag. These pre-tags request that the browser do not flow the text around. It asks the browser to honor the white space in the code. Otherwise, the code, it wouldn't look anything like what had been laid out, and you'd have a hard time following it. Then the next task, so we got to accept the parameters, transcribe each file, embed transcribe source in an HTML document with header and body. So a document consists of a head section and a body section as markup, and we apply a page header and footer. So here I have asked you in the requirements to supply a little header block. This is an HTML element that just might have a title or something like that, and a footer, and the footer might have a copyright notice or a team membership or something like that. Whatever made sense. Then apply the page header and footer regions, and then apply the theme styles, and then you should be done. Here's my structure. I drew this as a package diagram. And the reason I chose package diagram is a package diagram works, if you're writing a function-oriented program as you would in C, or if you're writing a class-oriented program as you would in Java or C# or C++, the package diagram, works equally well for both those kinds of designs. And so I've just laid out, here's the executive. It owns this dark diamond says that this guy owns this parse command line. He hasn't aggregated it. This isn't, he owns this package. And the executive also owns a document builder. The document builder is using a file handler, and the reason I didn't show ownership for this is my mental model is that these would probably be static functions, and so they don't need an owner. And then the document builder owns this embedder. The embedder owns a transcriber and a styler, and the embedder finally squirts this back to write out the file. This is not the only design. There's lots of different designs for this particular program that would have worked fine. This is just the one I chose. And then I've described the responsibilities for, really briefly for each one. What's the executive responsible for? What's the document builder responsible for? And so on. For each of these guys, I describe their responsibility. And then I talk about the processing. So, I talk about transcription. I talk about assembly. I talk about error handling. For this program, there's really only two kinds of error handling. I may have an error on the command line, in which case I display an error message and a usage message. Here's how you use this program, and you quit. If I have a file opening error, if I've got several files I want to process, I don't want to stop. I'll emit a brief little message that I couldn't open that file, and then I'll go on to the next file. So, and the design lets you think these things out. What happens is if you just sit down there and let your fingers do the design on the keyboard, you won't think about these things, you won't do them, and your program will be much less valuable. Okay, so error handling, testing, I just described, my test case, I'm gonna have a directory with no files, a directory of files, but none of them contain source code, a directory with several source code files, and a directory with correct results, okay? And then I just talk about, what that means for the test. So, for example, you say, why am I running this program on code that isn't source code? And the answer is that your users are gonna do that from time to time, and you don't want it to blow up. This is just I won't blow up on this thing, okay? That's what that tests. And again, good testing practice, you create these directories from a script so that every time you test, so what I would do is I would create these directories, and then I would provide a little easy way to delete them, or just delete them. And then next time you run the test, maybe as part of the test script, it just deletes the directories if they exist and then recreates them. So you always get, the tests are repeatable. Future extensions. So one extension will be to create a little graphical user interface, and this doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't need to be buckled into the source code to HTML. We can do that. The value of it is just to navigate to the files, the directory that holds the files you want to operate on, and lets you set a checkbox to say I want to line number these or I don't want to line number them, and pick a style sheet. And so I could create a graphical user interface, and all it does is it's going to spawn the source to HTML file, the source to HTML.exe, and hand it its command line arguments, and then it just runs. Okay. I've built a bunch of programs that way, and it works really nicely. Another extension would be parallel execution of the page transformations. So for a lot of applications, that's not significant. But if I were, one of the things I might want to do is, before I delivered a big system to my customer, I might want to run on the whole project, and for all the source code, generate source code files and set up a little website for them, so the customer can maintain it. It helps them maintain it. And for that case, if I'm going to transform 800, 1,000, 2,500 files, I might want to do that with a parallel execution. It turns out it's fairly easy to do. And the last one is interesting idea, and it turns out it's a little complicated to implement, and that is I would like to have a control that lets me show and hide the bodies of functions and comments, so I can turn off all the comments. So if I'm an experienced developer and I've looked at the code a lot already, the next time I look at it, I don't need to see all those comments. Let me turn them off and get them out of my way. And if I'm just beginning looking at this piece of code, I might want to remove the code from all the function bodies so I can see just who the functions are, what their names are, what their arguments are. Think of a Java program where I'm forced to put all the implementation into the class. Those classes can get really hard to read. And so if I just eliminate the implementation, then it looks like an interface, really, really easy to read. So those are potential extensions, and that's for future versions, no intent to build them. And then a little summary and conclusion. So this is my view of what a design document ought to be. And notice it's 4 pages. So, and you got 2 weeks, okay? So, I wouldn't wait till the last day. I know some of you can kind of do that. In 20 years of, more than 20 years of teaching graduate courses, I always had some students who would wait just before a project was due and try to do it in the last day, and they, those projects weren't very good. Okay, very, very rarely were they very good, just because it takes more time. So don't wait until the last day. Okay, so let me go back now and now I want to pull up. Do you see the Discord server, Mike?
Yes, Doc, I see it.
Okay, good. So now I'm going to pull up the sample presentation. And so now what this is exactly the same information that's in the design package, but more skeleton form. So users and users, you want to give quite a bit of focus to this. So in your presentation, a lot of the listeners won't be all that interested in the details of the design. They believe that you're a competent developer, and so they're mostly interested in, who's going to use it? Is this worth my investment? Is this worthwhile, and so on. Program tasks, and again, just quick summary of what the program tasks are. Source code to HTML. Now notice I put the diagram and then I put each one of these, and I didn't put a whole bunch of text here. the idea is on this, when you put up this slide, then you talk about what the exec's going to do. You talk about what the parse command line is going to do. You talk about what document builder is going to do. And, you know, all the presentation guys that'll let you put notes down at the bottom if you're worried about forgetting something you want to say. But, you know, by the time you've thought through the design and built the design document, you know, you probably won't have any problems with that. And then future extensions. So here's my little graphical, you know, GUI. And all it's going to do is spawn the source code exe and then give it a command line arguments and away it runs. And then parallel execution, I've got a blocking queue here. And, you know, as I identify files, I put them in here, and then each thread just pulls a file name out and does its thing with it. And then it, you know, it might have another output queue that it puts, you know, any, it puts the converted files in, or probably will just write them into a directory or whatever, you know. And then CSS and JavaScript transformations, show and hide blocks. And so that's the future extensions, and conclusions and recommendations. So, you know, there are no real issues here. You know, structure is relatively simple, requirements, just business as usual, nothing that anybody's going to be afraid of to implement. And I estimate maybe a person a week to build this version without the extensions. And the extensions are all plausible and, you know, aren't going to cause any huge delays. Okay? So that's my model of the presentation. Again, it's not like what you guys are going to do. Okay, not like what you guys are going to do. You guys are going to do the text finder, but it's showing you the structure of the document, shows you the structure of the presentation, and, you know. So, any questions? Let me stop the share. So, any questions? Everybody okay with this? Did I lose everybody? Okay. So, everything we looked at is here. I haven't pulled up this design challenge logistics. The mentors especially should look at that, but, you know, it tells you when, you know, when all the events are, what you have to do, what's, you know, when you have to provide stuff. So do we need to look at the logistics document? I like to have a little more participation, guys.
I don't know about everyone else, but I think we're okay so far. Pretty sure.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So, you know, when I have silence like that, I know that either one of two things happen. Either I was so clear that there just aren't any questions, or I was so obscure nobody knows what to ask.
I think it's more on the clear side for the most part. I think the explanation is very good, sir.
Okay, good. All righty. I think we're about done. Is there any reason why we shouldn't close out now? We'll do another one of these in a week, same time, same place. I'll send out a link. It'll be a new link. The old link won't work, but I'll do a new link. I'll put a link in the Discord, and I will email the link as well. Is there anybody who's here who didn't get emails from me about this meeting? Good. Okay. All righty, then I think we're done. So I hope you guys have fun. You know, everybody, all the faculty, they really want this to be a learning, interesting, fun experience, almost as much social as it is technical. But, you know, I think there's, especially for the freshmen and sophomores, you know, it's great that you're on a team with some juniors and seniors, and you know, get to rub elbows with them, and or virtually rub elbows with them and interact with them a little bit and see how they think. And you know, everybody else, you know, you'll get a chance to see how I think, how Mike thinks, how the mentors think. So alrighty, guys, with that, let's call it a day, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.